everybody, and welcome to high school basketball with me. I do enjoy it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's been like for the last few weeks. Just me in a gymnasium with a headset on, and I have been working my butt off. Yes, this is my welcome to you for episode 38 of the Owner's Box After Dark. I am your host, Mark Farinella, the former assistant sports editor, Patriots beat writer, sports columnist, and whatever you wanted me to do, I would pretty much do it, unless I didn't want to do it, at a daily newspaper down here in southeastern Massachusetts for 41 years duration. And now, blood pastor and cogger. Can you tell I'm tired? I am a podcaster and blogger, and also a sports play-by-play announcer for local cable television and for high school sports, which I absolutely am loving. Today's episode is being recorded, at least this first part of it, on Thursday, February 11th, 2021, here within the palatial confines of Fulton Pond Studios in Mansfield, Massachusetts. And you know what? I'm going to get a lot of things into this episode tonight. It's going to take me a while to finish it, I think, so hopefully I will have it done before the weekend. And we'll give it our best shot, but I have a lot of stuff scheduled. And some of it will have to do with basketball, and some of it will have to do with football, because there was a pretty big game played recently. And I don't want to analyze the game because it's so far in the past. But I'd like to go over some of the things that happened in the wake of that game and maybe where what kind of perspective that puts on a couple of franchises, one of which we know intimately around here. But before I get into that, I wanted to tell you folks a story tonight because, I've been talking about my knee injury and the surgery I had back in August to the point where I'm sure you're all probably sick of hearing about it. But I'd like to report that things are getting better. And even though I took two hellacious spills in the last week or so, last couple of weeks, I had the problem of walking. There was a very light snowfall around here over at Mansfield High School. I was bringing all my stuff into the hall from the car to the hallway. I had my briefcase, my pad that I sit on, my headset that we use for our broadcast, Mansfield Cable Access. We've all been given headsets this year so that we can cut down on the potential of transferring whatever germs we may have. And I had, of course, a big coffee in my hand too. And so I'm walking in, and it was wet outside, but I made the strange choice of wearing a pair of Reeboks with a very smooth and porous sole. So even though I was wiping my shoes on the carpets, I figured they'd be dry, but I could see even as I was walking in there that they had freshly waxed and cleaned the floor of the hallway leading into the gym. And so as I got to a certain point in the hall, I just must have hit a wet patch or something, but my feet just went out from under me. Now, I thought I was going to fall back on my head, but for some reason I ended up landing on all fours, and I jokingly have said before that I thought maybe I was a cat in a previous life, which obviously I was not, but I landed directly on my knees. Long story short, because I think I've told it already, I was okay. I got through the night. My coffee was spilled all over the place, but the guys on the Mansfield High basketball team actually cleaned it up for me. And what a bunch of great guys that they would do that for me and keep things clean, but they all did say that the hallway smelled terrific afterwards. So, that hurt, and it hurt for a couple of days. In fact, I had to bail out of two sessions of physical therapy because it had swollen up a little bit and hurt. And then, just a couple of nights ago, we had another snowstorm here, and I was cleaning out the driveway, and it was, I have my snowblower now, so I could handle that pretty easily. And I just at the bottom of the driveway where it's the street and it's the sidewalk, which is always covered up and piled up there by the street plows. It had been cleared by a sidewalk plow, but they don't clear it very well, so they left it like some chunk ice down at the bottom. So I slipped on, again, went straight down onto my injured left knee, and I'm thinking, this is ridiculous, because I had an appointment with my doctor, or at least with her assistant, coming up in a couple of days. So I figured, this is it. I'm setbacks galore. Well, I went to the appointment, and the assistant ran some tests and did all sorts of things. I have got every little thing popping up on my screen here. And she said that my knee was actually stronger, a little swollen, a little bit of fluid in the knee, she could tell, and I explained everything that had happened. And so she said, no, actually, you're getting stronger. Your measurements are better. Your strength, when I try to keep you from raising your leg and all that, it's much better. We're finally showing some progress here. So she said, I think we can give you one more shot. And before she said that, I almost leaped out of the seat and I said, yes, give me a shot. And at that moment, my mind immediately just popped into a cinematic phase where I imagined myself as being part of the 1979 movie called North Dallas 40. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's the story of basically a down on his luck wide receiver, kind of an older wide receiver, and he's always injured, and he hates dealing with the crap in pro football, but he still loves the game and he still wants to be a part of it. So he'll do just about anything to stay in it. This guy was named Phil Elliott, and he was played by Nick Nolte when Nick Nolte was a lot younger, so you could almost believe that he was the aging wide receiver. Kind of a Fred Biletnikoff type, I guess. But this team was loosely based on the Dallas Cowboys, and I think the writer of the book was a former Dallas Cowboy himself. And so it seems like Phil Elliott's always on the verge of getting cut, but he wants to be part of the team and maybe get himself set up for some free agency and maybe move on to another team the next year. And if he can just make that big catch in a big game, he'll get it done. Now they're getting close. They're in the playoffs and they're getting close to playing in the championship game, but he kind of makes a deal with the devil, and he decides that he'll do anything the coach tells him to do just so that he can get that starting role in the big game. And part of that is he has to convince a rookie running back that the running back has to get a shot in his knee. Now, the running back pulled a hamstring or strained something in a previous game, but they need him in this big game. So the coach comes to Phil Elliott and says, you have to do anything for the team, right? And Phil Elliott agrees. So part of the thing is he's got to try to convince the running back to take that injection in the knee. And so part of this is kind of a charade that goes on. He's in the training room, and the running back's there at the same time. So Phil says, well, you know what? While I'm here, let me get the shot. So the running back's not that cool about it. He doesn't even want to look at it as it happens. But, the trainer sticks this giant needle into Phil Elliott's knee, and he grimaces and all that as the stuff's being squirted around in there. And he just looks at the running back and says, better football through chemistry. And that's kind of what I envisioned myself being in that moment in the up at Brigham and Women's the other day. So, so they gave me the steroids and the painkiller. And kids, don't do this at home. Do not do this at home. I'm a 67-year-old man. If it's going to keep me on my feet for a little bit longer, I'm not playing sports. Nothing. I'm not violating anything except my own body, perhaps. But hopefully it will be part of my healing process. But you guys stay on the straight and narrow, please. Don't do what I do. But it did remind me of that Pretty Good movie. And that was one of the better movies on pro football made in the 70s, 80s, for quite a while, in fact. In fact, there's oftentimes they're not very realistic in their depiction of pro football. And let me tell you, as having been around it for 41 years, I think I know a little bit about pro football. Okay, that's the story of the day. Now, I've already killed 10 minutes. I'm going to do two things today. First, I'm going to run part of an interview that has already run on my audio podcast, which is called The Owner's Box. It's what I call the original gangsta. The Owner's Box, the original Owner's Box, started before, in fact, almost half a year before these video ones. So what I've done is I had an interview with a sweet young girl. Her name is Katelyn Mollica. She is the best player on the Foxborough High School girls basketball team. Her season's about to come to an end and it's her career, really. After 4 seasons and almost 1,400 career points and 2 state championships. And she had some pretty important things to say about trying to conduct this season in a pandemic. Now, our interview lasted for more than 40 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run about 20 of it here and also show you some clips of her career, because since it was a recorded telephone interview, I don't have any video, but I will have accompanying video to show you who she is and what she can do. And some of the things she said about growing up in this age of the pandemic and the disappointments of not being able to play in front of fans and to have the seasons cut in half, it's pretty important. I think it's worth listening to. The other thing, of course, is we'll talk a little bit about something in regard to the Super Bowl, although I'm not going to get into the details. You saw it on television. I don't have to tell you that Tom Brady won his 7th ring. But some of the things that have happened since then are worth talking about. The mood candle of the night is the Evergreen Mist from Yankee Candle. Smells wonderful. The drink is something I got at Wendy's before I got here. It's Diet Dr. Pepper Cherry, I believe. It's filling the bill because my throat's a little raspy from having done another game. I just saw the Mansfield Hornet boys defeat Stoughton 70-47, a game that was scheduled kind of on short notice. They have 2 games left, and their leading scorer, Matty Bowen, is 43 points away from 1,000 points. But they're going to be playing a decent team in the last 2 that they have scheduled. That doesn't mean there might not be 1 or 2 more coming down the pipe. But we're getting close to the cutoff date because high school football is supposed to start on February 22nd, and we are 11 days away from that. So things are getting a little tight in the scheduling department. We have a snowstorm coming this weekend, all sorts of joyous things. So please, after this commercial break, and I'll throw in 2 wonderful Japanese commercials tonight just to break things up a little bit more. I'll come back and we'll be talking to Katelyn Mollica actually, I won't be, but Black Sweater Mark will be talking to Katelyn Mollica, and we'll run about 20 minutes of that interview for your pleasure. And again, if you want to listen to the entire interview, please go to any of the popular podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, and so on and so forth. And they all have the Owner's Box, the original gangsta, which I don't call it that, but it's the Owner's Box. In the meantime, we will be back with the Owner's Box after dark, after these words. I think one of the things that kept me in print journalism for as long as I was in it was the fact that a group of talented young athletes would graduate from high school, but then another group of intriguing athletes would be just starting their careers, and I'd commit the next 4 years to seeing how the story of their careers unfolded. So it was in December of 2017 when a sprightly freshman guard took to the court for the first time at Foxborough High School and immediately proved that we would be writing her name or speaking it a lot over the next 4 years. That talented young woman is Katelyn Mollica, and she is my special guest today. Katelyn, welcome to the Owner's Box.
Hi, Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. It is a distinct pleasure. Now, I know this isn't your first appearance on a radio program or a podcast, but I'll make you one promise. I will pronounce your last name correctly throughout. And that's not just because of what you've done over the past 4 years, but it's also because your uncle, Dave Mollica, was the very successful baseball coach at Norton High School for 3 decades or more. And I certainly covered plenty of his games over that time. So people in our area already knew the Mollica name before you burst upon the scene.
Yep, Dave was a great coach, and he loved coaching at Norton, and he's such a sports fan, so he's sad he couldn't make any of the basketball games this year, but he was definitely watching on cable.
Which I was too, and we'll talk about that a little while later too, about how the change in our viewing patterns took place because of the pandemic. The pandemic has dragged on. We're now 48 weeks into it, and during that time, it's been tough. I mean, participation in team sports were restricted severely. I mean, some sports couldn't even play in the spring. We had big restrictions in the fall and changes in the sports. And, of course, we all know what happened to basketball here. But I think that sometimes I think about it as whether the in-person contact with your teammates and friends was probably restricted as well. And, how difficult was that for you to endure?
Yeah, this pandemic has really affected everyone in one way or another. I mean, everyone's missing out on things. Like, the football players haven't even played yet. So I just think it stinks, and I wish that wouldn't have happened my senior year, because I don't even go to school 5 days a week. Probably won't have a prom or anything like that. So it just stinks. But I hope that it'll be over soon, the vaccine, and we can get back to more normal lifestyle. Now,
were you able to play any summer ball at all this year? I mean, I know some AAU teams were able to play in tournaments in New Hampshire where the restrictions were not as strict as here in Massachusetts. Did you get to do that at all?
Yeah, my team played at one tournament in New Hampshire. We practiced all summer, which was nice. But, yeah, because we would have had a summer league, too, with our Foxborough team, but we couldn't even do that. So it stunk, because I feel like those summer leagues are so important, especially for recruiting and stuff like that. So I kind of stunk not being able to do that, but we were able to get a lot of practices in, which helps.
I particularly missed the Mass Premier Court Summer High School Leagues. I've always loved.
I wanted to play in my last one.
I've always loved watching those games. It's as a basketball junkie of sorts, it kind of reminds me that the season is coming and all that. But but of course that was canceled. As you know, a lot of times those are very helpful to put a team together. I mean, it's almost like a team bonding type of thing. And given that you guys had some graduation losses from last year, and it was going to be pretty much of a new team, do you think that was harmful at all in putting together the team for this year, or anything like that?
I mean, we tried to get together as much as we can. Like, I think we did practices twice a week at NPC, so that was helpful. But we really did have to create chemistry together, because it was a lot of new players, new faces, and just a lot of kids hadn't gotten that varsity experience. So it was tough trying to rebuild that in a way. But I think we did a pretty good job with the short season we had. Turned out pretty good.
Now, right up until the last weeks before this winter season was supposed to begin, there was still a great deal of uncertainty about whether there would be a season, and especially with the uptick in coronavirus cases that began in the fall. Lisa told me that you were always on the phone to her. You were always asking her what she knew and what she thought would happen, and she admitted to me that she didn't always have the answers for you at the time. How frustrating and frightening was that to you, thinking that maybe there might not even be a season?
Yeah, like coming into the season, we just knew there was so much uncertainty. We couldn't take anything for granted. So when we found out we would have a shortened season, we just knew we had to play every game like it was our last, because anything could go wrong at any time. So that mentality, I think, is super important, just to play every game your hardest. But coming into the season, I was just frustrated because we couldn't have any captain's practice or anything. So it was tough not being able to get the team together, getting shots up. So that kind of stunk, not being able to get in the gym as much as I wish we could have.
Not only that, though, Katelyn, but also, the state, when they finally got around to approving winter sports, they basically made it half of a season. I mean, the original schedule was 10 games, no state tournaments, so you didn't have a chance to defend what title you had or anything like that. But your team has gone 8-2 to this point, and those losses were to a very, very tall Oliver Ames squad that I thought that you guys outplayed for 3 quarters of each game. You had one bad quarter in each of those games, but given how tall they are, I mean, I think you did well in it. You yourself, you averaged 17.7 a game to the present day. You have, at least, as I've said before, one more game definitely scheduled, although I haven't got a game time on that KP game yet. I know that I think
it's at 1:30 at KP.
Okay, and I also think that there's been some talks with the Mansfield Hornets, which if it's over here,
hopefully.
If it's over here, I can do that game on Mansfield Cable Access, and somehow you might be able to hear it. And again, I've been told that maybe, even though the original plan for a Hockomock League tournament at the end of the year might not be able to fly because so many teams didn't get in all their games, they might be able to do a crossover, like a 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, things like that.
I think that'd be awesome. At least give every team another opportunity to play at least one more game. I think that'd be cool. But yeah, it's disappointing that there's just too many teams who have to make up games. There's not enough time before the fall 2 season starts.
Given all that, Katelyn, though, has it been enough? I mean, I know how much of a basketball junkie you are, and you've had the opportunity to play 25, 26 games in some of these seasons. And, your senior year, when things should be special and exciting, and it's been kind of like half a season. I mean, any basketball is better than no basketball, but I still wonder how you guys feel about it, because it's just not.
Yeah.
To me, it leaves a hole in my heart. How about you?
I know, me too. I've honestly been lucky though. I've gotten so many extra games through my freshman and junior year, probably 10 extra games there. So I can't be too upset that this is a shortened season, but it obviously does stink. But yeah, I've played a lot of games, so I should be thankful for that.
Now, COVID-19 had one more uppercut to deliver, though, and that was when Foxborough school officials decided they would ban all of the fans from the home games this year.
Yeah.
Now, how heartbreaking is that to an athlete out there trying her best to represent the school and to do what you can to bring good things to the town of Foxborough? I mean, I understand the reasons, but it still has to be heartbreaking not to have anybody in the gym.
Yeah, because we went from playing in front of tons of people with the stands filled and just having such a loud gym, and then going to the next year, just not even having our parents there was super heartbreaking. And my parents are such basketball fans, so they were super upset. But it's just not the same watching it on a TV at your house. And our senior night, we were actually able to have our parents there, and it was just so special. And I just think we could have done that all season. There's no reason that they couldn't have really spaced out the gym. It's big enough, but
yeah,
I understand.
I couldn't understand it either.
I don't know. I see both sides, but when you see Mansfield and Attleboro having fans, it's just aggravating.
Yep. No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because again, I've been in the Mansfield gym most of the time. And, of course, the King Philip...
It's a different atmosphere with fans. You need that support sometimes.
And, of course, the King Philip gym is so much smaller, and yet they still were able to get some fans into the place.
We have a pretty big-sized gym, too.
Yeah.
It's whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, and, I hate to say it, but you kind of have to take that approach to it. It is what it is, and make the most of it.
Right.
I think the bottom line is that people felt that this was the best way to look out for your health and your best interests, and I guess that's a fair way to look at it.
Yeah.
Now,
for sure.
At least one good thing is that there is a lot more basketball in your future, and it will be close by. It will be close by for those of us that really want to continue watching you. You've committed to attend Stonehill College. Congratulations.
Yep.
And that's your dad's alma mater, am I correct?
Oh, yeah. He wanted me to go there. He loves Stonehill.
Well, some very good Hockomock League players have been there too, and that's nice. But I got to interject here that even the colleges aren't immune from all these issues. Just about, I would say, right about the beginning of the year, early in January, was about the time that they were going to start play on a delayed basis, that the entire Northeast 10 decided that the threat of infection was too high, and so all league games were canceled. Now, I'm close friends with Missy Traversi, the coach at Adelphi, and she was telling me the stories of how, you know, all the kids were out there practicing, working hard, and continuing to work, even though by the time they were supposed to start, normally they would have played as many as 8 or 9 games. And then they got that news just all of a sudden, you know, as they were preparing, again, just a few days before they were supposed to start their season. And again, it was heartbreaking. So, you know, I would have to say, my guess is that you're probably very eager to get this pandemic over and done with before you start your college career.
I know. I hope everything will be fine by the time I go there. But I was actually talking to some of the coaches at Stonehill, and they had already been in the gym practicing for like a month or two, and then they got the news that it was canceled, so they were all super upset. But it just stinks that even the college levels can't play right now. It's sad. Everyone's missing out.
You know, I feel badly for you guys, but in a way, by you guys I mean younger folks, because all right, I'm 67. I'm an old man. My life is practically over, so I've seen all sorts of stuff, and now a pandemic is added to it. At least you guys are getting this early in your lives.
Right.
hopefully without any threat going forward. I gotta admit, I'm really eager to get that needle in my arm. I'm still not at the top of the list, but what can I do? You know, so I just wear.
You'll get it soon.
I wear the mask. I do all the things I'm supposed to do, and hopefully that will take place. But at least you guys are more resilient. You're younger. You'll be better people for this. I think. At least I hope so. But I'm so sad that it's had the effect that it's had on you, and the things that you were denied of that almost everybody takes for granted. You know, like you said, not just basketball, but you know, regular interaction at school, your prom, things like that.
Yeah,
you know,
it sucks.
Let me ask you though, Katelyn, as we start to wrap up this chat, I want to ask you what might be the one thing that you've taken from your high school basketball career that you think will serve you the best as you navigate the peaks and valleys of your future life. What do you think that you're going to really carry from this on as you go forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, let me think about that for a sec.
I like to ask tough questions.
Honestly, probably just always remember to work hard. Coach Lisa has always taught us you can never put in too much time to something that you love, and hard work is so important to be good and win. And it's just such an important mentality to have in basketball. It's a sport you can't really put down, and you always have to be working the off season, and just your work ethic is so important. So I'll probably take that away from her and just keep that going to Stonehill, just have that same mentality.
Katelyn, it has been a joy watching your career.
Thank you so much.
I hope to get to games at Stonehill in the future when we all can go back to games again, which I really can't wait until that happens. But in the meantime, one of my favorite memories, as I said, will always be watching the multiple championships. I had such a great time following you last year through right up to the Garden. One of my favorite shots I remember seeing on the replay was you taking a step back three from way outside the NBA line and still hitting it.
That's so funny.
You know, certainly your basketball skills have been a joy to watch, but I like to root for good people, and I know from everything that I've been told that you are a good person. So keep it up. Keep up the joyful pursuit of basketball and everything.
Thank you so much, especially for covering me for 4 years. You're so nice, and I appreciate all that you've done.
Thank you so much for saying that, Katelyn. That was Katelyn Mollica, current Foxborough Warrior basketball standout and a future Stonehill Skyhawk. And my thanks to you, Katelyn, for spending some time with me here in the Owner's Box.
Of course. Thank you for having me again.
チキンラーメン飽きた。新しいのがいい。 아, チキンラーメン 아, 新しいのがいい. 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 サバ？嘘、美味しい。朝バー？美味しい。チキンラーメン、日清。
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of The Owner's Box After Dark. No reverberation on After Dark this time because we are in Studio B, the auxiliary studio, I guess you might call it, here at Fulton Pond Studios in Mansfield, Massachusetts. I'm Mark Farinella. I hope you were studying, and there will be a test later. I don't have a lot of time left in this episode. We've already jam-packed it with a lot of stuff, so I want to get into a topic that you probably expected me to talk about, and of course I shall. It is Super Bowl 55, and it is the fact that the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, won his 7th ring, 5 fingers on one hand, 2 on the other. 6 of them, of course, with the New England Patriots in the 31-9 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs at his own current home stadium, Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay. And I got the pick right, at least. My pick, if you recall from my previous episode, was 36-31 Tampa Bay. Now, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs failed to live up to their end of the bargain on that. And I actually missed the turning point of the game, if you can believe it. We were in the midst of a snowstorm up here, and as I was sitting watching the first few minutes of the game, and it really wasn't going anywhere, and I look outside, and the snow is piling up higher and higher, and I knew I wanted to get out there, and because I'm not as mobile as I'd like to be, I wanted to get to start addressing the driveway before it got out of hand for me. So I went outside and went up and down the driveway for about, I would say, 20 minutes. The new snowblower is wonderful. It really gets it done quickly. But during that time, I missed the turning point of the game when Brady threw 2 straight touchdown passes to his old buddy, Rob Gronkowski. One of them was with 27 seconds left in the first quarter, if I'm not mistaken. It was an 8-yard pass. And the second one was a 17-yard pass with 6:05 left in the first half. I believe that was the time on it. And that was pretty much it. After that, the Chiefs were playing off their back foot. The Tampa Bay defense was incredible. They were always in Patrick Mahomes' face. In fact, let us put a rest right now to all this talk about Mahomes being the greatest of this time as opposed to the greatest of all time. Mr. Mahomes has a lot to prove yet, I think. He had a flashy first couple of years. Wow, impressive, no question about it. But he's human. He's mortal. He is playing with a bad case of turf toe or something of that effect, I believe. He completed 26 of 49 passes in the game, 270 yards, but 2 interceptions and no touchdown passes. And so that's kind of that is definitely an un-Mahomes-like stat line. I think his passer rating was 52.3. And when you're talking about being in the biggest game of the year and a chance to really start your personal legacy on a upward swing, I don't think that was part of the plan. Meanwhile, Brady, what a classic managing game, really, when you get down to it. 21 of 29. And we've seen him do that a lot with the Patriots over the years, too. He just get into a nice little groove, not attempt anything wild here and there. I know there were a few long passes that Brady uncorked, I think, at one point in the game, just because I think he wanted to try to prove to people he could do it. But 21 of 29 for 201 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 125.8 passer rating. Pretty impressive. And if this wasn't good enough, Gronkowski was the leading receiver for the Buccaneers. 6 catches for 67 yards and the 2 very important touchdowns. So this has a huge ripple effect, I think, upon not just the Buccaneers, who it appears that Gronkowski wants to stay. He's supposed to be a free agent at the end of the year, and I wasn't sure at first whether him coming out of retirement and being just a blocker when he first came back. I didn't know if that was going to be satisfactory to him. But, of course, as the season went along, you could see Brady turning to him more and more. And in the Super Bowl, it was clear that he went to him probably more than he did in any of the Patriots Super Bowls when you get down to it. So I know right now the Buccaneers are heavily marketing the concept of the what would you call it, a July-November friendship, a buddy thing here, like a cop movie between Brady and Gronkowski. I mean, they have just recently we've started to see on the internet these little snippets of video that are marketed by the Buccaneers PR department. It shows Brady and Gronkowski sitting on the grounds of the Buccaneers training facility, but they've got a little inflatable wading pool in front of them, and they stick their feet in it from time to time, and they're sitting in lawn chairs, and there's a mailbox between them, and they kind of go in there and they grab information out of that for their little topics, and they laugh and they joke, and you hear Gronkowski's goofy laugh throughout the whole thing, and it's kind of charming. I mean, if they'd done that stuff with the Patriots, I think it would have been fun. But nobody does that with the Patriots. The Patriots don't do those kind of things, and that's kind of a shame. And I think that might be part of the potential downfall of the Patriots franchise in the weeks and months and years to come. But we'll talk about that in a second. The truth be told, it looks like Brady and Gronkowski and other people involved with the Buccaneers are just having a blast. And while football is a sport where a huge amount of commitment is necessary, where there can't be any quote-unquote days off, or at least I think there's not supposed to be, at least that's what we've been told by Bill Belichick all these years, they found a way to manage to get a few days off into their lives and to bring about a little bit of joy to it. And the result, over the second half of the season, from a point where the Buccaneers were struggling a little bit in the early part of the season, you could just see things kick in as they went forward, and they all finally got trust in Brady. Now, you heard me say it last week. I'm not a big fan of Tom Brady, the person. That doesn't mean I'm not a big fan of Tom Brady, the quarterback. I think the personal Brady has gotten a little too Hollywood for my taste. He has been that way for quite a while. Although, it was hilarious. I got to admit, it was hilarious to see him get totally plastered during the boat parade that they had in Tampa as they rode personal watercraft up the Hillsborough River, I think it is. And the players were out there, kind of like our duck boat parades here, but with real boats and maybe even a few real ducks. Of course, you all saw probably that video of Brady tossing the Lombardi Trophy from one boat to the other so Gronk could catch it. I a little scared about that, but was it any worse than Gronk using the Lombardi Trophy as a bat during batting practice at Fenway Park? But this Tommy and Gronky persona that has come out of these videos and things like that, it seems to be an idea that maybe football can be a little bit more fun than it was over a 20-year grind for those two guys here in New England. So the question that I'm asking is that if you can be allowed to be goofy and still be good, what does that mean to the do your job, no days off philosophy here in New England that is going to have to be reinforced if the Patriots are going to reverse this slide down into mediocrity? I don't know if they can, at least not under the current leadership. Let's face it, Bill Belichick is closing in on 70 years of age. I don't think he's going to get a lot more touchy-feely in his old age. If anything, he's just going to go in the opposite direction, just get more cranky. And he surrounds himself with sycophants, kind of like the former president we used to have. And he doesn't, I don't think he, since Nick Caserio left to go to the Texans, I don't know if he has people in the front office who will tell him no. And I'm not even sure that Caserio told him no all that often either. So if it's going to be the imperial reign of Bill Belichick going forward, how many players are really going to want to come here? Because they're not going to get them all through the draft. And they're certainly not going to get them through undrafted free agency. So they're going to have to go out there, get players in the draft, or they're going to have to spend money and get real players from other teams. And how many are going to actually want to come here if it seems like it's just not going to be an enjoyable experience? And it is such a rebuild right now that I'm just wondering if indeed this is going to work. There's some huge gaps in the lineups of the New England Patriots. Quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, some around the offensive line as well. Defensive line. Linebacking core is a little bit iffy. Most of the secondary is pretty good. Kicker will probably be a situation this year. I don't know what the case may be with these guys. This is a huge rebuild. So if you got Belichick wielding the imperial hand, and you have an aging ownership that it will be far less capable of saying no to Bill Belichick in the future, then what's going to happen? Is Robert Kraft going to be a guy who's going to want to make a bold move at this stage of his life? He is 78, 79. Is Jonathan Kraft the guy who's going to come in and say, Bill Belichick, your career is over. We need somebody younger. We need somebody fresher. We need a better scouting department. We need better drafting. We need better pro scouting. I think they're living off of the championships that Tom Brady bought them and got them and provided them with. And I just think that I think it's not going to be a very bright period of time for the New England Patriots going forward. So does that mean that New England fans are just going to have to start rooting for another team as they did in the 1950s before there was a pro football team here? I don't know if it's going to go that far. I don't know if it's going to get that ridiculous, but let's face it, we are seeing a huge change. And I think that the dynasty definitely is over now. There's no question about it. There's the history of the Patriots. There's the recent past, which was glorious. And now there is an extremely uncertain future. And I think we're just going to have to hold and roll and see how it turns out. But if I were in a position where decisions could be made, I think it's time to start making some bold decisions and making some risky ones and saying, hey, the greatest coach in the history of the game? Yes, he was. Emphasis on was. So that will do it for today's episode. Plenty of stuff in it, and I really enjoyed putting it together for you. Got to wear 3 different shirts again. It's always a lot of fun to show off the wardrobe changes. It's nice to be back in Studio B. We haven't been here in a while, although I just don't have the mixing board, so I can't do the reverberated thing. And I forgot to bring the pipe. Hugh Hefner's pipe has not been part of this episode, and I'm sad it wasn't. But just a reminder, we have a couple of basketball games left to go on the local schedule. Big games this weekend. Certainly the biggest will probably be the Mansfield boys playing at 6:15 p.m. on Monday at the James Albertini Memorial Gymnasium against Taunton. And that game is probably going to be the one where we will find out whether senior Matty Bowen goes over the 1,000-point career mark or not. It's going to come down to that one. We're really not sure if there's going to be any more games after that. Likelihood is not. As I said before, the high school football practice schedule is supposed to start on the 22nd, so we're getting pretty close to that. So until we get to that, I've had a blast doing all the games that I've done this year on local cable, and I'm looking forward to the football season, and we'll continue to go out there and challenge my vocal cords with hopefully some very exciting action. Just a reminder, you can send me emails to let me know how you think I'm doing on these podcasts. And the address is theownersbox2020@gmail.com. Or you can send me snail mail, which is the Owner's Box, Post Office Box 272, Mansfield, Massachusetts, 02048. And you can also check out my webpage. I really wish you would do that. I just re-upped. I've spent the money for the domain name. It is, of course, the Owner's Box 2020 at, what is it? It is theownersbox2020.com. And you might want to add the www if you type it in blind, and then save it as a favorite. You'll see my all of my Blogging Fearlessly blog. You'll see links to all of my podcasts, both the video ones and the audio ones. And you will also get to enjoy the other things I put on that website, including schedules for my broadcasts, coffee reviews, all sorts of things that just come to mind. So hope you will enjoy that. The standard reminder here, and I don't have any of the stuff with me in here, but you know what it looks like. Hand sanitizer, use it. Wash your hands frequently, please do. Wear your masks. It's still very important. We are about to turn a corner on this. I'm convinced of it. But in the meantime, just keep doing it and don't complain about it. There are a lot of worse things you could be complaining about, and one of them would be if you were in a hospital, hooked up to a ventilator, and not sure if you would ever see your loved ones again. So please, do everything you can to avoid that circumstance. We'll have another one of these out to you before long. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and good evening, everyone.